Hi, welcome to the Interaxis channel and Interaxis.io. Today we're going to address a question that we've seen from many of our viewers, that is, why does Bitcoin have value and why does it continue to have value? This is a really important concept to get across, especially as we see the value, the price of Bitcoin and the price of cryptocurrency going up so much. The question of why does Bitcoin, the original cryptocurrency, the big one, why does it continue to have value? And to answer that question, we have to talk about what a store of value is, okay? Because the main value proposition now of Bitcoin is as a store of value, which can also be seen as an inflation hedge, okay? So it is a store of value. Now, what does that mean? Traditionally, stores of value we've looked at are gold and even the US dollar. Okay, the dollar has been seen as a store of value. What does that mean? It means that I'm not necessarily trying to store value as in a dollar amount of value. I'm trying to store purchasing power, the ability to buy things, right? Because the things, the goods, the services I buy, I need to be able to buy the same number of them in a year, 5 years, 10 years as I buy today. Okay, so a little example of this, we'll look at something like inflation. So if today I have $1 and that dollar will buy me one loaf of bread, okay, in, call it a year, it costs $1.10 for that same loaf of bread. Now, why is that reason? Because the folks making the bread are making the same amount of bread, all right? The same number of people to feed, but now it costs me $1.10. This is 10% inflation. Now, we don't see ourselves having 10% annual inflation in the US, but this is an example. What does that mean? If I just held money in my bank account in dollars, in a year, if I held $1 in my bank account in 1 year, I won't even be able to buy a loaf of bread. Okay, if I have $100 in there, today I can buy 100 loaves of bread. In a year, I can't buy as many. I can buy 90-something loaves of bread at that point. Okay, that ends up being a big difference when you extrapolate that among all the goods and services that you pay for in a year. Because if the price of all those things that you buy is going up, and your dollars, the amount of money that you earn or the amount of money that you have, isn't going up by the same proportion, you can't buy as much stuff in real terms. Real terms are the terms of what can I afford, what can I purchase. Your value is actually going down. Okay, so there are two ways to look at this. If I'm going to have to buy things either now or in the future, okay, I have two choices. It's either I can earn more, right? Because I have to have money coming in to my bank or my accounts, we'll call it the bank account, and then I have money that I've saved in here, okay? And as I go from point A, which is today, to some point in the future, okay, and if inflation has gone up 10%, if that loaf of bread has gone from $1 to $1.10, I have to somehow have the money to pay for that loaf of bread here. Now, I can have it either because my earnings have gone up. If that's gone up 10%, then I might have enough to do it because money will come into my bank account and I'll immediately have enough to pay for that extra 10 cents for the loaf of bread. Or I can take what I've saved and hope that has made that 10% growth. Okay, now if I save it in the bank, we both know that banks currently are not paying 10% interest to keep up with inflation. And that's where we get into investments. And you need to have investments as some growth to offset inflation. In this case, what you look at potentially is Bitcoin. In the past, we may have looked at gold. In the past, we even looked at the US dollar, because the US dollar was the value worldwide that stayed relatively stable compared to everything else. So people stored money in the US dollar. But what we've seen in the past year, especially with COVID, is the government continues to create more dollars. And as there's more dollars and the same amount of bread, the bread just has to cost more. That's just supply and demand. So why does Bitcoin then fit in here as a store of value? Because people need to be able to save some of their money to increase their buying power, or to at least maintain their buying power. Now, why is it important when it relates to Bitcoin? Because as most people know, as most people have learned, maybe you haven't, from a technical perspective, there can only ever be 21 million Bitcoin mined, created, whatever you want to call it. There can only ever be 21 million. This is verifiable. Gold, there's a certain amount of gold in the world, and we continue to pull more gold out of the ground. We could always, all of a sudden strike more gold. Bitcoin, this is programmatically, statistically, systematically, algorithmically verifiable. There will only ever be 21 million. So, if the amount of dollars in the world is going up considerably by the trillions, and the amount of Bitcoin is remaining stable, then it only makes sense, based on supply and demand, that the value of the Bitcoin will continue to rise because there's more and more dollars, especially as the government has printed more and more money. And as the economy starts to get back on track, we will really see the results of that inflation. We think we will see the results of that inflation. So if you wonder why Bitcoin has value, it's mainly now as a store of value, as an inflation hedge, saying we think our goods and services will cost more in the future because there are more dollars. Same amount of goods and services, more dollars means these will go up in price. I have to have something to offset that increase in price. And that something can either be I earn more money, or my savings or my investments gets me more. Now, if I put that money into something like gold, which we pretty much know the supply of, or Bitcoin, which we verifiably know the supply of at any moment, that's where we say these should go up in value, in price, probably more than the growth in inflation, because there's only a certain number. It's a supply and demand issue. There's more dollars than there are Bitcoin, right? So as the supply of dollars goes up, the value of the Bitcoin should go up, and there's more and more people that want it. We have probably passed the point in Bitcoin where it is overly speculative. We've probably passed the point where people go, is this really going to be the store of value? There are enough hedge fund managers and institutions, there's enough infrastructure around it to say this is a verifiable, this is a real store of value now, and there's very little that's going to be able to bring it back down to cryptocurrency speculative status. Now it is kind of on par, not from a value perspective, but it's kind of on par with gold to say this is a verifiable store of value. This is something we can use to maintain my purchasing power into the future. And that's what I really need. I don't necessarily need to maintain my dollars. I need to maintain the purchasing power. And I maintain the purchasing power when if inflation goes up 10%, I need whatever I have saved up, my savings, to go up at least 10% to be able to maintain and just buy the same stuff. Okay, so that's where we see the value of Bitcoin going up and continuing to go up. And of course, the fact that so many institutions, so many people have bought in and just said, look, I'm just going to hold on to it for a while. There are fewer and fewer Bitcoin that are available for you and I, for anyone else getting in now, to go purchase, which means the price just has to go up because there's less and less and less of a supply of Bitcoin, and there's more dollars. There's more dollars, more fiat currency trying to get in and buy those because of the inflation hedge, meaning inflation is coming. I need to make sure that I maintain my purchasing power. So that's a little bit about why Bitcoin has and continues to have value, mainly as a store of value or an inflation hedge, because I need to maintain my purchasing power. And the way I maintain my purchasing power is by investing or storing my money in something that has a limited supply when the supply of dollars is increasing rapidly. So supply of dollars is increasing, supply of Bitcoin is not, therefore it's a store of value, and that's why it has and continues to have value and continues to grow in value. Hope you enjoyed this, hope you'll subscribe to the channel here, and hope you enjoy more videos coming. Follow us on Twitter at Interaxis8, the number 8. Email us info@interaxis.io. Come visit our website, interaxis.io. We'll see you in the next video.